And we're live.
Welcome back, everyone. Episode 57 of Kids Deserve It. We hope you've been enjoying our weekly chats with educators and game changers from around the country. Also, don't forget, you can check our show out on iTunes.
And make sure you pick up a copy of Kids Deserve It up on Amazon now. It's a great book to share with your friends, family, other coworkers, all kinds of stuff. So pick a copy up today.
Also, don't forget to join our very busy Kids Deserve It chat on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and check out Todd's Periscope right before the chat at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. This week, we got another great guest, but first, we want to introduce ourselves. I am Adam Welcome, Director of Innovation and Technology from the Bay Area of California.
And I am Todd Nesloni, Elementary School Principal in Navasota, Texas. And our special guest this week is Jennifer Lagarde. Jennifer, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
We want to remind our viewers to participate on social media using the hashtag Kids Deserve It, whether you are watching this live or watching the recording or on iTunes or YouTube later. We hope you share out your favorite parts using the hashtag.
So, Jennifer, we have a few questions for you.
I'm ready. Lay them on me.
All right. So for those who don't know about you, tell us about yourself.
Oh, my goodness. Well, my name's Jennifer Lagarde. My current official job title is Digital Teaching and Learning Specialist in Wilmington, North Carolina. But I'm really just a teacher and a school librarian. I taught English language arts for 11 years, and then I was a school librarian for 7. And then I did some work for the state of North Carolina as a state consultant. And now I just run around helping teachers do crazy fun things with their kids all day long.
That sounds like my job. I love it.
I'm like the grandmother of our district. Like, I run in and get everybody hyped up, and then I leave.
That's awesome.
It's the best job ever.
Jennifer, you've always got lots of projects going on. Looking at the past year, what is something that you're really proud of?
Oh my gosh. Well, this year I've just really had I don't know, I feel so lucky in my district that I have supportive leadership at the top of our district who has really wanted to help our district and our teachers and our parents and our students tell their story. This year, along with some other people in my district, I've really gotten to lead the charge in terms of helping everyone in our district use social media like Twitter to tell the story of what's happening in their classrooms. I don't know how things are in Texas and California, but in North Carolina, we have a whole narrative going on about what education is really like. And so I feel super passionate about the idea that teachers really can be the media. Principals can be the media. They don't need the newspaper to come out and cover a story. They don't need the television station to, decide that something is worth covering. Teachers can share the great work that's going on in their classrooms, in their libraries, in their computer labs, and principals all over their schools just by harnessing the power of social media. And also, through that work, then they can really have real and relevant conversations with kids as they start to dip their toes in the social media pool, so to speak. So this year, I've had the opportunity to start a district-wide Twitter chat with our district. We have empowered teachers all across our district to lead these chats on topics from everything having to do with new teachers and how do you survive the first year as a new teacher in the classroom, to how do you use primary sources in the classroom, to what are best practices in math, to just everything in between. Anything that classroom teachers want to talk about, we talk about in our monthly Twitter chat. And then also, I've just been able to spend a lot of time helping educators use that platform to tell the story of the work that's happening in our classrooms, because, oh my gosh, it's so awesome. I mean, I'm sure you all see that in your schools and your district. There's so much great work happening. We have the megaphone. We just need to use it.
I think that's. Go ahead, Adam.
I love it. Like we don't brag enough in education. You read the business section and all these companies are bragging about their profits. And, when I was a principal, I used to say that we were the PR, we were the marketing department for our school. And you just do it from your phone. It's not like you don't need a reporter. Like, nobody watches the news. Like, get your phone.
Exactly.
We were in the paper.
Right.
Like, I don't read the paper. Who reads the paper anymore? So it's just, that's relevant. The other way is not totally.
Yeah, you're the media. Go
I
ahead,
think
Todd.
it's funny
Sorry.
too because our commissioner of education here in Texas, who's actually trying to do some good things with our education system, he actually just sent out a challenge for all the school districts and teachers in our state to be using the hashtag #IamTXEd, Texas Ed, because he said, we're going to be looking at that with the Texas Education Agency so that we can say, look at the great things
Yes.
our teachers are doing, because there's a lot of uproar in our state with the new accountability system and the state testing, and just like many other states. I know North Carolina has a lot of those conversations too, especially with teacher pay and other things going on in y'all's state. And so I thought it was pretty interesting that even our state commissioner of education reached out to all the principals via the listserv and said, you know what, tell your teachers to use this hashtag because we're going to be looking at it. We want them to see.
Yes.
We want to share it with the education agency. But I love that you are inspiring even more people to get on at your district, because I mean, there's some great educators in North Carolina that I know that are on social media sharing their stuff. And so I just love when we can get anybody else on there.
Yes, Adam, my very first principal is a school librarian, Robin Myers, who's on Twitter, and y'all should follow her. She used to say all the time, it's not bragging if it's true. So if you're sharing the truth of what's happening, it's not bragging. It's just about sharing your kid's story. And I always tell educators, if you do a Google search for education in North Carolina, in California, or just nationwide, there's a story being told. There is a narrative out there about education, but is it really the truth, or is it the whole story? Because often what gets printed in the press doesn't represent our daily work with children, which frankly is a story we have to tell more, because Todd, just like you said, this job's hard. We can't do it alone. We need our elected officials. We need the folks who go to the voting booth and vote whether or not they pass bond referendums, et cetera. We need those people. And even in our district, in the short time we've been doing this, we've seen tremendous outreach from our community. We had a math teacher who tweeted about how she was learning about stand-up desks and wished she had a few, and boom, some showed up at her school because some parent on Twitter saw it and wanted to help. I mean, it takes all of us. The old saying, it takes a village, et cetera, is so true. It takes all of us, and we just have to be willing to share that story, because, I mean, to quote some wise men I know, our kids deserve it.
Yeah.
Well, and we got to let people know that our system is not flush with cash, right, Jennifer?
Right. Despite what some people might say. Now, speaking of flush with cash, Todd told me that Adam was going to pay me a certain amount every time I said kids deserve it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's
yeah. Okay. All right. Got it. Ka-ching. One in.
I'm on it. That's why I wasn't following you until a couple weeks ago. I don't want to pay you, so
right. I get it.
What's the hardest part you think about being in education? What's the hardest part?
Is that, well, I'm going to quote Todd Whitaker, the best part of being in education is that it matters. The hardest part is that it matters every single day. Mm-hmm. Every single day that you walk in, whether you're at the central office level like I am now, or you're a classroom teacher, or you're a principal, whatever your job is, it matters every day. You don't get to take a day off. You don't get to have a day where it just doesn't, it's not, it's a down day. We don't have those down days because kids are depending on us. That's to me, the toughest part. There's lots of struggles, practical struggles that go along with that. Obviously, we don't have enough funding. Obviously, we don't have enough support. We ought to just be able to go in and do our work and be confident in the knowledge that our community knows that we're doing the best for kids and that they should support us. But we live in a time where we have to, tell that story ourselves. And those things are challenging, but they're not the challenge of education, which is to make it count every single day. But to me, also on the flip side, that is also super inspiring, going in and knowing that what I do that day will make a difference for kids somewhere. That's what gets you up to go to work every single day, mm-hmm. right? Like, why would you keep doing it if it didn't matter? So to me, it's, I don't know, both sides of the coin, but I always go back to Todd Whitaker. The best part is that it matters. The worst part is that it matters every single day.
I think about that. I think about, like, I used to say, I don't have bad days. I have great days and, like, even greater days. Kids don't deserve us to have those bad days, right? And
exactly.
Very, very, very similar sentiments. So, Jennifer, what was school like growing up for you? I mean, I'm excited for this answer because you got so much energy and you've lived here and you've lived there. Like, I want to know, what was it like?
Well, I grew up in poverty. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, despite my accent right now. But I always joke that my family was like a military family, except not noble or good in any way. We moved around a lot and were heavily armed, but that's pretty much where all of the similarities ended. But my family was very poor. By the time I was in the 8th grade, I'd been to 26 different schools.
Whoa.
I moved around a lot and was perpetually the new kid. But that being said, schooling for me was a safe place. I found a home and a family in school, even if I wasn't there very long. It's hard to believe now, but I was painfully shy. And so I often tell the story when I'm speaking to groups of that. When I would rock up to a new school, because I'm so old, there weren't mandatory attendance laws, or they didn't require that my parents be there when I showed up. I would show up and get paperwork for them, but oftentimes I was there just with my brother. And so I would go to the office, get the paperwork, and the nice lady behind the desk would say, go take your brother to this classroom and you go down to this classroom. But I instead would find my way often to the school library instead and find the Judy Blume books and take one off the shelf and then go hide under a table until someone found me. And in those situations, I found kindness, I found escape in books, I found a family in literature, and eventually I found friends and I found my own voice. In many, many ways, school saved me. I was the first person in my family to graduate from high school and then certainly to earn an advanced degree. I believe in public education so strongly because I wouldn't be here without it. So if you're talking about like what was school like for me as a learner, of course, we sat in straight rows. Of course, we did a lot of sitting and getting. But even still, even though at that time that met my needs and I recognize that that's not appropriate for the kids now, there are some things that haven't changed about school and for me, or that shouldn't change about school. And for me, that is that relationships are crucial and key and the most important thing. They have to come first. And that's why I'm here. You know, without those, without the support and truly love of a few teachers and librarians along the way, I wouldn't be sitting here right now today talking to you.
I just want to say, I love the relationship because the first blog post that Todd and I wrote together was called Relationships Matter Most, you know, like such a Kids Deserve a theme. Sorry, Todd, go ahead.
Well, and I think, Jennifer, you know, that's just such a powerful story and such a great story that you can share, not only with kids, but also with adults of just, you know, helping kids get through those difficult times and what adults can be to those kids, what teachers can be, what books can be. I just think there's so many powerful stories in there. But of course, I know you still have some of those days, I'm sure like all of us, where it's tough to get out of bed and you're just not in the mood and you don't want to deal with it. What do you kind of do to kick your butt into gear and show up anyway?
Well, you know, I try to focus on who we teach more than what we teach, you know. The content and the curriculum is so critical, but it's the little people in the seats or the bigger people, if you're a middle and high school person, as I always was, that really matters. But on those days when I'm feeling a little bit downtrodden, I guess, or lacking in motivation. And I'm going to tell you, there's been a lot of those days lately. It's hard with the narrative nationally about education to get up and carry that weight on your shoulder and still go out there and be the Pied Piper and be excited and be the cheerleader for people. And I just, when those kind of days happen, I just have to remind myself that there is some kid sitting in some seat like me who's waiting for someone to see them, to notice them, and to save them. I mean, that is, frankly, I mean, our job is no smaller than changing the world. That is what we do. So when I think about, when I get, you know, I don't know, not depressed, but when I get to the point where it's hard to get up and get in there that day, where I feel like I'd like to take a personal day, I just think about little Jennifer in some seat somewhere who needs me. So that is what gets me up and going to school or going to work every single day.
I love that. So you're someone who's obviously really passionate about books. Love that story from elementary school and connecting kids with stories and, you know, different characters. So like, why is that so important to you?
Oh my gosh, because every child needs to see themselves in a book. Every child deserves to see themselves as a hero, deserves to see their stories reflected. You know, books, the old saying, books act as windows and as mirrors. For some kids, they validate their life experience. Where you read about a character in a book who looks like you, who talks like you, who has an experience similar to you, then you start to feel okay about yourself. Oh, I'm not the only one going through this. Oh, I'm not the only person who's ever felt this way. But also they can be a window into other worlds that are more hopeful for a lot of kids, especially our most vulnerable learners, you know, our kids who are living in poverty. Books can provide them with a window into a world of possibility. You know, when they see kids who look like them, who are going on to colleges and discovering things and making a difference, they may not have anyone at home talking about that as a possibility. I didn't. And it wasn't because, you know, my parents didn't want me to do better than they did. It's just that my parents didn't think about that as a realistic option. But in books, kids can have somebody, maybe for the very first time, showing them that that's an option for them, that they can do something beyond what they've always dreamed of. So it's critical, you know, to make sure that our books and our collections, whether they're in our classrooms or they're in our libraries, look like the kids that we serve, where everybody could see themselves in a book.
I think Todd lost connection.
Yeah,
so,
he looks frozen there. He'll come back.
He's frozen. So tell us about your 30
now
second.
we can talk about him, Adam.
Let's talk about him. Oh my God, those deep fried Oreos. Tell us about your 30-second book talk, Jennifer.
Okay, well, so this is a project that I can't really take a whole lot of credit for. This is really Dr. Brad Gustafson all over it. He sent me a box one day and said, hey, I want to do a 30-take podcast, but about book talks instead. Let's do something where we can help provide teachers with an opportunity to talk to kids about books in ways that are joyful. Like, instead of about, let's create a diorama afterwards, or here, take this multiple choice test, let's give teachers an avenue, a way to talk about the books they love without any kind of assessment associated. And of course, you know, Brad does the 30-second take podcast with educators. And so I was just all over this. Plus, I'm super competitive. You can ask Todd that too. You know, like I don't join a game unless I think I can win. So I play to win. So this idea of let's do, as we tossed it back and forth, we decided, why don't we set up a bracket system like, you know, March Madness, where we take one team of what we call the lead learners that Brad is the coach of, and those are administrator types, you know, superintendents, principals, etc., from around the world, versus the other team, the better team, of course, the literacy legends, coached by me, and they are teacher librarian types, right? And let's pit them against each other, and let's have the world vote on the best book talk, right? So this is our second year doing it. We just finished up round one, and I can't tell you who's made it to the final four, but I can tell you that in the course of round one, just 1 week, we got almost 8,500 votes from students. I know, right? From students and teachers all around the world who watch these videos, and we created and published some rubrics to help kids score videos if they wanted to, and we collected tips from educators around the world on how to make a great book talk, etc. And we had 16 educators from 3 different continents who completed book talks for us and shared, you know, their favorite book. And some of them were classic tales, you know, what books I'm sure that you might remember, like Where the Red Fern Grows was one, I'm sure you remember from your own schooling. And then more modern ones. Yeah, exactly. More modern ones that teachers and educators shared. And then all these kids have voted, and they've picked the final 4. And so the final 4, which is top secret right now, they are busy creating their second 30-second book talk now. And then we will open it up again to the world, where, you know, kids all over the place will vote until finally the one person will emerge as the World Book Talk champion. And let me tell you what's so cool about this, Adam. I could talk about it forever. But not only do they get this amazing digital badge, the Vince Lim Bookie Prize, but This
That is
year,
so Brad Gustafson, by the
I
way.
know, right? Doesn't it have Brad written all over it? Exactly. But this year, Scholastic has sponsored us. So the winner will also get $500 worth of books for their classroom or library from Scholastic. So it's awesome. But what has really been just so empowering, I don't know, just like fills my heart with joy about this project is that we have seen through the 30-second book talk hashtag, educators sharing the 30-second book talks that they and their kids are making in response. And so it's just provided this platform for kids to hear adults talking about books they love without any mention of a multiple choice test or a book
vocabulary
report.
words.
Exactly. Exactly. So that is just so joyful to me. And, 8,500 votes, that's not chump change. I'm real excited that so many people have participated.
People just follow along the 30-second book talk hashtag. Is that the best way?
Yep.
Got it.
Exactly. And we post something every day, and I hope that we've asked our final four to have their book talks in not this coming week, but the Tuesday of the following week. And so then we will have a podcast to share hopefully later that week and get the votes for round 2 rolling.
I just remember like 4 years ago, Brad did the Cinderella story in education. It was fun. That was like 4 years ago. So I'm glad he's still rocking with that. Todd, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah. So Jennifer, every week we like our guests to leave a challenge for our viewers. What's your challenge for this week?
Okay, it's going to take me a minute to roll this out. Okay, so Todd knows I can talk for a lot of time, but lately I have been thinking a lot about what seems to be kind of a lack of empathy in our world. How quick we are to blame the other person when something doesn't go our way, etc. And I've also been thinking about this thing, this darkness in our world, and then also recent polls and studies that are increasingly showing that the generation of kids we have right now graduating from college and in college are non-readers. They don't read for pleasure. They only read when they're asked to do so as part of an assignment. They don't see reading as something relevant to their lives. They only see it as something they do when they need to find the main idea or write a report, etc. And so in that being said, I don't think it's a coincidence that this is also the first generation of kids that have gone through their entire K-12 education in a system that's so focused on high stakes testing. Where, as you know, as elementary school folks yourself, that elementary school kids are tested on reading almost more than they actually get to do any reading. And that kind of standardized testing continues all through middle and high school at different ways. And so I feel so strongly and passionately that we as educators really have an opportunity, but also an obligation to try to balance those scales and start talking about or start recognizing that reading for pleasure and loving reading is just as important as being able to decode those symbols on the page. So my challenge to your listeners and readers and fans and all that stuff is to have a conversation this week with a kid about reading that has nothing to do with a project or an assessment in any way, shape, or form. Tell them about the book that made you ugly cry. Tell them about the story you read that made you laugh so hard you had to run to the bathroom. Tell them about something that made you think in a different way, but then don't ask them to find the main idea or answer questions or make a diorama or any of that business. Have a real and authentic conversations with kids about reading that's joyful. That's my challenge. Go do it.
I think that is a wonderful challenge. Jennifer, thank you so much for being our guest on the show this week. We really enjoyed having you.
Thank you. I loved it. Same time next week?
That's right. We want to remind our viewers that they can tweet us using the hashtag KidsDeserveIt or @KidsDeserveIt on social media. We will be joining our Twitter chats on Wednesday. And make sure you check out our next guest, who is Olympian Krista Dietzen. Everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next time.